All right, people, welcome in. Here is another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show. It is powered by WagerTalk.com. It's all about college hoops here. Great night last night. Even better tonight, guys. 56 games on the card, and then they'll throw in a couple of scraps. And bottom line is you got more opportunities tonight to profit than most. And nobody better to help us navigate through that than our man Ralph here over at WagerTalk.com. And Ralph, as always, it's a fun time of year, man. It's exciting. We're really starting to see some of these teams separate themselves into different conferences around the country, separate themselves from each other. Big card last night, and, of course, an even bigger card here tonight. So it's a great time of year. I love this with college hoops.
Well, we're seeing that home-road dichotomy in a lot of conferences.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to the upsets, we're going to see there was 14 more upsets yesterday by dogs of 2.5 or more. So, you're almost talking one in every 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
So, when people look and they remember that one game where it finished right on the number and, how can Vegas make that number? They're not. They're throwing up numbers based on power ratings that anybody can do. Trust me. If you study, you can put up those numbers and be as close as they are. It shows by the upsets how far really off they are.
Yep. And, of course, guys, if you're new to the show, welcome in here. We like to do a little recap of what happened the night before, kind of get you guys caught up in case you missed anything. And we always talk about upsets, Ralph. Upsets are what it is all about. And I'll tell you right now, I was blown away by this one because mostly I lost my ass on it, but I was still blown away that Long Beach State managed at home to beat UC Irvine. I just, not going to lie, Ralph, did not see it coming there. Long Beach State has struggled here, and I really thought Irvine was kicking it into another gear, but I was sadly mistaken.
I agree with you. It's a game where, Irvine has to play one of those difficult non-conference schedules, but they're not the same Irvine as they are. I mean,
yes.
They come in at 11-9, and even you look at the Big West this year, while they're the best team in the Big West, they were so much better for so many years. But, this year Hawaii's not too far behind them, and Cal Santa Barbara isn't. But, Long Beach State to me is, for them to go and beat Irvine at home and then beat UC Santa Barbara on the road, and their only other wins are Providence and and San Diego, that's the amazing part of it. So, yeah, it's a game where Irvine scored 56 points. It's a game that, if you look at Irvine's numbers, they're not horrible. Mm-hmm. They shot 5. They were only 5 of 26 from 3-pointers.
Yep.
But Long Beach was only 2 and 11. So you say, where's the difference? Well, Long Beach did shoot 22 of 42 from 2-pointers, so 52%, and made 6 more free throws. That was enough to win the game. In the rebounding, it really came down to, on the defensive boards, Irving got very few second shots.
Yeah. And that whole California coast can kiss my ass last night, along with Cal State, Northridge there, and Santa Barbara. Like, seriously, Santa Barbara? Like, come on, people! You got to be kidding me! On the road, lose at home.
Joe, remember the Sale Santa Barbara? We talked about him with Diane back.
Yep.
Diane was the player of the year, the newcomer of the year, the freshman of the year last year. He wasn't eligible the first 11 games. I've been on him a few times. I didn't play on him last night in the spot, but they are a completely different team what people remember in November and December.
So true to that. And big shout out to our Patriot League peeps there. How about Army last night, huh, Ralph? How many times we talk about Patriot League? We've backed them a couple of times, actually, Army this year, and getting the job done. Who the hell scores 94 points at Army? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, again, we talked about Army back in December when they pulled the upset against Buffalo. So, yes, they're still an 8-10 team, and yes, they're playing in a Patriot League where Colgate's still the best team, and Army is near the bottom, but you shoot well for one night, and what happens? You pull that upset.
That's right. Boom. You guys can get it done. Some big names last night, too, on the card. And, oh, wow, what a shock. We talked about him yesterday here on the show. Luke Garza, Iowa, taking on Rutgers. Now, Iowa, listen, to their credit, they were down at home in the first half, Ralph. They had to kind of kick it into another gear in the second half, which is why it helps having a player like Luke Garza at home to be able to do that. Rutgers did give him a run, though.
Yeah, you look at Garza, and his name's going to be in the Player of the Year, candidacy. There's no question. So, um, depending on where they go, there's a handful of guys, but his name has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And scoring Quentin Rose scoring 26 against Cincinnati is not an easy thing to do. Granted, it was in a loss, and people may not follow the Mountain West as close, the bottom teams. Everyone knows about San Diego State, but UNLV was playing really good ball, but Nevada handled them, basically wire to wire. From what I saw, I didn't watch it, but I was watching scores, and from the second half on, they were the better team. It seemed, at least on the scoreboard.
Yep, crushed it, and of course some of the OTS performances there, covers. Oh boy, Ralph, we called it, and wow, it was. I could not believe it. I had to actually refresh the screen a couple of times because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Tulsa, holy crap, on a roll, continuing to be on a roll, just manhandled Memphis. And again, Ralph, another one of these situations. Memphis had a number next to it, right? Memphis has got a little number next to it. Tulsa doesn't. Tulsa at home, Memphis on the road, going through some transition there. Now with Wiseman gone, it hasn't been great. And voila, look at what happens, Ralph. 43-point ridiculousness. I mean, they were getting 3 to begin with, Tulsa at home, and they roll them 80-40.
I am happy to say, for those that think we always talk about winners, you don't watch this show because I've talked about several times that I've had the wrong side of the largest covers.
That's correct.
I'm happy to say that I was on the right side of that Tulsa game. So a nice 4 in one day, and I'll tell you what,
Tulsa has burned us a few times too.
It was the best 4 in one day I ever had, Joe, because my loss got crushed. The 4 wins crushed. There was no stress. It was
in between.
It was done. You know what? It was my loss was a bad game. My wins were great. So, having a stressful free night watching hoops and not biting my nails down to the nubs as we go down and shooting free throws with a couple seconds left was very, very refreshing.
Yep, so true. Another one of your plays there, Ralph. Western Kentucky there. I think that we talked about that game a little bit yesterday. Ridiculous under, guys. As was. Listen, we weren't sure about Xavier at home taking on Georgetown. They haven't been great, and they were laying a bunch of points, but the total may be shocking to people. Some people expecting a little more out of Georgetown than the 57 points, but that went way under the 147 number, Ralph.
Yeah, Xavier was probably one of the games that I left off, and there were a lot of them yesterday. And you don't when it's going great, you're not afraid to put 7 plays out. When it's uneven, you just don't want to get that kind of exposure. But, Travis Steele yesterday for Xavier said, listen, we have sucked. I don't care. I don't care who's starting. Whoever practices the hardest is going to play. And I like those circle the wagon games when he just doesn't care who the scholarship guys are, who the non-scholarship guys are, who the stars are, who the non-stars are. Whoever gives those effort, it really sets a tone. And what happens when you set a tone? It usually comes on the defensive end.
That's correct. And boom, it certainly happened there. And we'll take a look at the markets here, guys, in just a second. Some of the movers and the shakers here today on, again, a loaded card, over 56 games on the card here tonight. Plus, we've got a couple of showcase games, some featured games that we'll break down for you coming up. One in the Big Ten, which is a great matchup. Michigan State and Indiana we'll talk about. And then maybe not one that's on everyone's radar, Ralph, but absolutely should be in a Murray State situation. So we'll go ahead and we'll break that down for you. But first, let's talk about your trends and angles, Ralph. Everybody loves TNA, especially your TNA, and trends and angles. So go ahead, Ralph. Let's see what you got here, man.
Well, the 2 biggest ones are totals, and both are significant. Minnesota travels to play Ohio State. Minnesota is now 2-17-1 over under on the road.
Damn.
And even more importantly, of those 2 wins, one was the game against Purdue that was under in regulation, went to 2 overtimes. Oh, yeah, I had that under and lost, so it's a very bitter reminder. So Minnesota realistically is closer to 1-18 over under their last 19 road games. And on the flip side, a high scoring Tennessee Martin 18-3 over under their last 21 games. That sort of sounds like Houston Baptist type numbers.
Yep. Speaking of which, did they hit the over last night? We mentioned it. I didn't even look. Did they?
I didn't even look because
now you got me looking, Ralph.
The show,
now I gotta look.
Yeah, well, I'm right behind you. I'll keep reading trends as you look.
You keep it. I'll find it. Go ahead.
Utah, a team that people don't think about, an over team. They're 13-2 over under at home, and then couple sides. North Texas. 12-1 ATS their last 13 games. And, William and Mary has now covered 8 straight at home. They're coming off a loss as well.
Yep, and it's funny, Ralph, is, let's see here, last night. Looking forward to actually a couple of big games here today on the card, Ralph. I think that are going to be awesome, and not just in the Big Ten, but I think it's kind of make or break for Ohio State. We'll touch base on that one a little bit later, but Houston Baptist. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to how much? Let's see.
They only scored 83
points.
That's
right. Oh, I'm looking. Holy crap.
But they allowed 91, and the total was only 166. So,
yeah,
yes,
boom,
another
there
over.
It is.
They're 13-1 over. Yeah.
Yes, Houston Baptist, Nicholls State. Look at it. They both scored 47 points in the second half apiece. 91-83. The total goes over. Also, a big shout-out, Ralph, the kind of games that we talked about yesterday, and Ralph laid them out for you. Not only is 4-1 for clients there, guys, but big day all around, even for the show. We told you Georgia Tech yesterday. It was a bad spot for Louisville. Remember, we talked about how teams actually coming off a loss to Duke or having played Duke were actually
having a win off a win against Duke.
Yeah, off a win against Duke, and they were. It was an undefeated number. It was kind of crazy, but but Georgia Tech. I give them credit, Ralph. They're a pain in the ass. They really are. They just won't go away, and they gave Louisville everything they could handle last night on the road.
Well, again, we talked. What did we say? That Pastner has his teams playing better. Their best player, Jose Alvarado, wasn't there in the beginning. And, you look at their losses. It's one of those value teams because there's close losses.
Yep.
4 points to Notre Dame, 5 points to Virginia, 4 points to Louisville. Those are situations where you're getting value because Georgia Tech now 8-11. Mm-hmm. But they play hard, and they were a dog in those 2 games, there's last 2 games against 2 great teams.
Yep, and if you guys are keeping score, North Carolina lost again yesterday, so we'll just throw that out there for you.
They did cover, though.
They did cover, but yes, but that I don't think Roy Williams is running around Chapel Hill going, we covered! We cover! Don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, his alumni are probably pissed because they finally decided to fade him, and then he comes and covers the damn game.
So true. Good win by Vatech to be able to come back at home, though. You don't want that on your resume. All right, let's take a look at the market here, guys. Quickly, again, loaded here tonight. Plenty of games. I mentioned it, so I'll bring it up here, Ralph, because it's getting, of course, crazy action here tonight. Ohio State, Minnesota. What do you say about Ohio State, guys? 0-6. It has been a horrific stretch. It doesn't make a difference if it's home or away. They got absolutely mauled into Penn State there over the weekend. It has not been good. Now, Minnesota, listen, we've been on Minnesota a billion times this year, Ralph. We love them at home. They're kind of we haven't been able to see them put it together on the road. This number continues to climb, Ralph. Open up at 7. It's 8.5 and getting close to 9 in some places here. Should Ohio State be 8.5, 9, over anybody, even at home?
Well, my number was 5.5, and I had Minnesota circled as a game I was going to look at, and I did leave it off my card today. And by the way, off that 4-1 day, I do have a 5% side play today, only my third of the year in college basketball. So there is a game on the board that I really do like, but this is a game I left off. I left off Minnesota and the under. Ohio State plays slow at home under Holtman. But I did leave it off for this reason. Reading the Columbus Dispatch today, Holtman's much in that same position as Xavier, and he's making some changes in the lineup. He's starting new guys. He's switching some people. And when you have a quality coach, and I clearly consider Chris Holtman a quality coach. To me, he's a top 10 or 15 coach in the country. When they're making those kind of changes, going to play a role. And if you look, they're 1-5 their last 6. Losing to West Virginia, nothing wrong with that. Losing at Maryland, nothing wrong with that. Losing at Indiana, nothing wrong with that. Losing at Penn State, nothing wrong with that.
Right.
The only home loss was Wisconsin, and that was a 61-57 battle. So, yes, the body of work certainly shows something. And while we automatically say what's wrong with Ohio State, we could say Penn State is so much better, and at home they're improved. Indiana's so much improved. Maryland is so much improved. And their only other loss this year was at Minnesota, a team we talked about which just improved. So with Ohio State playing them for the second time, having that revenge off that loss on December 15th, and Holtman making changes, Minnesota's the game. Again, my power rating numbers is lower, but you're not going to just play a game because of the power ratings. You have to look at the whole situation.
We'll go out to the West Coast, Ralph, for some of these, some of the bigger movements that we've seen. I'll give you a total here that's really come down. Opened up at 137.5. Utah Valley versus Cal State Bakersfield here tonight, Ralph. Interesting battle here as Cal State Bakersfield opens up as a 5.5 at home. That's coming back a little bit. I'm seeing some 5s, even a couple of 4.5s. But that total goes down from 137.5, Ralph. I'm seeing 133, 132.5 out here. So not expecting a very high-scoring matchup with Utah Valley and Cal State Bakersfield tonight.
I agree with the line move, Joe, for this reason, because, you have Bakersfield at home, to me, the better team. That's 322 in tempo shooting the ball.
Ooh. So
you have a disparity in styles where Utah Valley likes to play faster. But again, you've got to remember, Utah Valley, very inexperienced this year. Their head coach, Mark Pope, left to go to BYU. They took the best player with him from last year. They have a lot of new young players, and they're really struggling. So, in that situation, I completely agree with the line move. What was the other line move I was looking at in the West?
Which one?
There was a 90% to the over, and it's moved 6 points.
Yeah, which one? The UCLA game, UCLA Oregon State?
No, there are a ton of totals.
Yeah, I was going to say
Oregon, Tennessee State down 6 points.
Oregon State's down 6 points.
Morehead State, Tennessee Tech up 7 points with 95% of the money.
It's crazy. Yep.
There are some monster total
huge moves for early, and it's a little bit crazy. And another big move, Ralph. How about BYU on the road? Opens up as a 7-point favorite against Pacific, but Pacific's getting all the money, getting all the love here. It's down to 5.5 in some places here. So BYU, is Childs playing? I guess that's the big question we need to ask right off the bat.
I do not think Childs is available yet.
There you go.
My notes when I didn't read that game because the number was where I was at when I'm going through it. But my thought is Childs isn't going to be back for a few more weeks. I'm just pulling up the. Yeah,
I'm thinking that kind of movement too. I think that opened up as 7 though, but it's already moving towards Pacific at home, and BYU's too good a shooting team to all of a sudden be pulling points, unless of course Childs is. He ain't coming back, but I think you're right. That was an extended injury, was it not?
Cougars have won 3 straight. BYU, the most efficient offensive team in the country. Keep reading as you cut me out.
No,
with Child still recovering from an open dislocation of the right index finger. Yep. Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, TJ Haws is the kid from Utah Valley that the coach Pope brought over. It's talking that Pacific is just playing better. That of course is Damon Stottlemyre as the head coach there. Yep. And I just think BYU. There was a lot of love with BYU early. Pacific at 15-6, nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
And BYU. Off the Gonzaga loss, you've lost 2 of your last 4 games, but again, that's St. Mary's in overtime, and then you got blown out against the Zags, which is very understandable. Yeah.
Right. Yep. All right, guys. So Plenty of games on the card here again tonight. You told Ralph, just to recap here, he told you he's got a 5% side play tonight in college hoops. WagerTalk.com. Just get there, guys. Just go over there, grab the 5%. He don't put a lot of them out. So go over there and get it. It's a game that he is all over tonight, along with a few others, I'm sure, available to you, which is really at this point, just go get yourself a 3-day, 7-day. Go get a package, guys. Get all his plays all throughout the weekend, including, which is going to be a monster weekend, Ralph, the Big 12 SEC Challenge, I believe, is Saturday. So now would be a good time. Go get yourself a 7-day package and don't miss any of the plays because it's going to be a monster weekend in college hoops. And it's a great night tonight, Ralph. Chock full of plenty of dogs on the card here today. So is there one that stuck out to you above everything else?
Yeah, boy, there's a few dogs I liked. I'm gonna throw. I'm going to throw Drexel out there against Northeastern, and I'll also, a couple others I liked.
Drexel's
I also
good.
liked Portland against Marymount, and I liked Towson against Elon. So my official play is going to be Drexel plus the 8.
I love that.
And, again, but all three of those were games that were in the mix for me that I just didn't quite make the card.
Yeah, a couple of games, 2 games that I like, 2 teams that I like. I think there's plenty of value in, and as much as I love the Colorado Buffaloes, laying 13.5 points, Ralph, is a little obnoxious against a Washington State team that, let's face it, C.J. Ellaby the kid is on fire. This is a team that's been playing really, really well over the last month here, Ralph. Now, while Colorado is the better team, and I'm sure they probably win this game, much like Georgia Tech last night. I don't like the spot for Colorado, especially, Ellaby's coming off of, 22 and 25 points in games. He is one of the best scorers in the Pac-12. They haven't been great on the road, but, sometimes, Ralph, teams really start to find themselves and find a groove. It looks like Washington State has done that. It just seems like a ton of points to me.
Well, again, you have new scheme changes. Kyle Smith came over from San Francisco. This is his first year. You start 3-4, including a loss to Colorado State and a Nebraska team that wasn't very good. And then you start to put it together. They did play a very weak set of schedules. But you played a bad Cal team. The thing that concerns me is that in their 2 other Pac-12 games, they lost to Cal, which is a bad team, by 7, and then they lost to Stanford by 26. They did come home and sweep the Oregons last week, so we'll see. It's a team that has experienced guards. Ellaby only a sophomore, but he doesn't play like a sophomore.
Right.
He's more their power forward. Him and Rodman switch over those forward positions that they both play that role. So, I don't like the other side. So, it's a game that will certainly be intriguing because that's the difference in the Pac-12 is you really have to steal a few road games.
Yeah, no, you absolutely do. And one of the big games, 2 of the feature games here tonight, guys. The first one we'll talk about, Big Ten, of course, Michigan State, Indiana. That's right, Michigan State, Indiana. So what do we need to know about this? Well, you need to know Michigan State right now laying 3.5, 4 points. It looks like a favorite on the road in Indiana. Total hovering around that 142 mark. Indiana's been really good at home, I believe. 11-1 is what they've got rolling right now. Michigan State, we all know, much better at home than they are. Typical Michigan, typical Big Ten. Not great on the road here. There was some early line movement, Ralph. We did see some money come in and push towards Indiana, dropping the number a little bit here. But this is really, how much do you trust Michigan State on the road? How much do you like Indiana at home? They've been really good there. What do you anticipate?
I look at Michigan State as a whole, and the talent is still there. You have maybe the best point guard in the country. That's going to go a long way. Tillman's played much better. And you look at the losses, Kentucky back in November, Virginia Tech on a neutral over Thanksgiving, losing to Duke at home, nothing wrong with that. I think so many people remember the Purdue game where they only scored 42 points against Purdue that that they think this Michigan State team is down. Well, let's just say, if you threw out your best game and your worst game, okay, now they're 9 by 12. They beat Minnesota by 16. They beat Michigan by 18. They beat Illinois by 20. You beat Northwestern, Oakland, Rutgers. So to me, I think Michigan State's on sale. I just think so many people remember that Purdue game and they can't get it out of their minds. And, this Indiana team, who did they beat at home in the Big Ten? They beat Nebraska in overtime. Nebraska was a train wreck. No starters, a new coach. They beat Northwestern at home, the worst team in the conference, and then they beat a struggling Ohio State team. So, and then your road win was just at Nebraska. So the way I like it, I'm talking myself more and more into Michigan State here.
I was going to say, he just took a giant shit in the middle of Indiana's campus right there. Just want you to know that. Ralph just dropped it right there for you guys. He just talked himself into Michigan State going over it. I love it. Listen, Michigan State, we know the Indiana lost, by the way, 11-1 at home, guys. That one loss was to a pretty good Arkansas team. But the Spartans, it doesn't change the fact. Michigan State, their stats drop on the road. They're not as efficient on offense. They don't score as much. But you know what travels with them? Defense. And I think also Indiana as well. Pretty good defensively at home. I'm looking towards the under in this game here, Ralph. Hovering around the 142 and a half. I like the under in this with both teams maybe having a hard time getting to 70, and maybe the first one to 70 wins.
Well, I'm going to throw one more thing in there, Joe.
He's taking a shit in Indiana again. Here we go. Go ahead, Ralph.
Last year, Michigan State was a 14-point home favorite against Indiana.
Oh, we got a revenge spot, though.
And they were 6.5-point road favorite in Indiana. And they lost both games.
There you go. Little hope, guys. Little hope, but he's baiting you. He's worse than the sports books, Ralph. He's baiting you right now. The under, though, 6-2 in the Spartans' last 8 road games. That's what we mean. It's their metrics aren't the same on the road as they are at home, and both teams averaging here, or at least holding teams to about 65 points. So I'll look towards the under. Ralph talked himself into Michigan State, which brings us to our other feature game here, Ralph. Talk to me here about Belmont, the Bruins versus the Murray State Racers as they face off tonight. And we're looking at a Murray State team at home, Ralph. It's a pick 'em, but it's going towards Murray State now. I'm seeing -1, -1.5 total, right around that 147 mark. These are two teams that have a lot of success this year, Ralph, coming in, getting ready to do a little bit of a little battle here. What's the big difference between these two teams?
Well, if you live in Tennessee, and besides Tennessee Vanderbilt, this is the next biggest rivalry. I mean, there's not much distance between these two. Belmont, of course, in Nashville, and Murray in Murray, Tennessee. And like Ohio State, Michigan, you have Michigan week. This really is. I mean, these two schools, this is Belmont week. This is Murray State week. They used to be in different divisions. So these have been the 1 and 2 teams each of the last 3 years in the tournament. If you remember Belmont last year, Belmont beat Murray State, knocked them out of the OVC tournament, then went to the NCAA tournament, Temple and Maryland. So I do really like playing on season-ending revenge where Belmont lost to Murray State. So, it's a game that they're going to remember. But then on the flip side, Murray State had one home loss last year, and it was to Belmont. I also love playing on lone home loss revenge. So you have conflicting trends, which makes this game so great. Again, as I said, they were 1 and 2 in the tournaments each of the last 2 years. I look at them this year, and Murray. Murray's coming off an overtime road game where they struggled against Southeast Missouri, and you certainly can say, well, that could have been a look ahead to this game, and I agree with that is. I still, on paper, think Belmont's the better team. Belmont can win on the road. There's no question with that. But Belmont this year has played a very weak schedule. It's not always the case with the Bruins, but we know there's 353 teams. They've played the number 351 schedule. Well, guess what? Murray State's played the 353rd schedule.
Oh, so there you go. Yeah.
They both have played the weakest two schedules. So, we really don't know how good they are when we look at conference play in the Ohio Valley. I give Belmont's the number 3 offense, number 1 defense. Murray State's number 2 on offense, number 4 on defense. When you look at all conference players this year, Belmont has 2 of the top 4 players in Musinski and Murphy. Murray State has 2 of the top players with Brown and Williams. I think it's a great game. I look at it, and if anyone were getting 3 or more, I would grab them.
Okay.
So I will just give the slightest of leans to the home team. Murray laying the 1. Obviously, the 1's not going to affect you. You're not going to lose a game laying 1. You may push it. So faster paced game. Game's going to be, Joe, what's the total in it?
I believe, let me get you, because it's just actually reset. So let me just double check and make sure I get you the correct numbers. We had a whole lot of board movement here, which is a good reminder, guys. Make sure.
150, 150, 149 and a half. That's exactly
just opened up there is 150 in some places. Yep, absolutely. 147 and a half down to 150.
We see, I think it's going to be a war. I think with those revenge situations, it would make me lean to the under, despite the teams having faster paced. I think we get value with that because totals are based on what teams have done year to date.
Right.
Well, both teams are facing the best defense in conference play they've had, and my lean would be the under. But for those that don't follow the Ohio Valley Conference, it will be a war tonight. Yeah,
I'm with you on the total there, Ralph. I think on paper it looks like they're giving up more points as of late, but their last 4 games, we got last 4, I believe, for the Racers on the road, and the way both of these offenses score, but the way they also play defense, the way the Racers play defense, it continues to move up. So the public or somebody is betting this from 147 now up to 150, Ralph. But I think it might be getting a little out of hand there. I lean the under with you, and I do think that Murray State might have a shot here at handling this and taking care of business on home court. You don't often get a pick 'em game like this here, Ralph, where it teeters back and forth. That usually tells us that it's going to be an all-out war tonight, and probably some quality basketball at that.
Well, again, this has been a 2-team league for so many years.
Yep.
It's the creme de la creme, and the Ohio Valley Conference. Surprisingly, Austin Peay is in that mix too.
That's correct.
They were a team that I looked at, and they're 6-0.
They're a money
just
maker.
An example, when I'm handicapping today, Austin Peay is -8.5.
Yep.
And I was close to using them, but when you're laying 8.5 and you have a home game against Belmont on Saturday, clearly that to me is a look-ahead situation because potentially you're thinking, well, we could be 7-0 after tonight. If Belmont beats Murray State, we're in first place, and we have to protect our home field on Sunday. So, again, I liked Austin Peay. I left them off the card because they host Belmont on Saturday. So it's a tough 2-game stretch for the Bruins.
That it is. So it is best bet time here, guys. Also a reminder, Ralph's got his 5% play up at wagertalk.com. So now would be a good time. As soon as we're done here, just head over to wagertalk.com and grabs 5% play here tonight on a side. Not to mention, just go ahead, grab yourself the package. 3 days, 7 days. Big weekend Saturday in college hoops. They are SEC Big 12. The crossover, it's going to be fantastic. And Ralph's got you covered there. So head over to the Cal Sports page. So talk to us, Ralph. Where are you going here tonight? Best bets?
I'm going to a team that I've used a couple times this year, game number 608, William and Mary.
Ooh,
and I will say this is one of my 4 plays that I have. It is a 3% play up at Wager Talk. They're laying 9 to James Madison. William and Mary having a great season, but they're coming off an embarrassing loss. They had played back-to-back road games, and they just got ripped last game. So now you have a hungry team back at home playing a team that's very up-tempo in James Madison. And when you look at James Madison's schedule, Their D is number 303 in efficiency, one of the worst in the country. And they only played 5 teams this year with offensive efficiencies are 250 or higher. Well, William & Mary's clearly in that gap at number 102. Well, when James Madison's played those teams that are good offensively, they've allowed 87 points per game. This team is only averaging the road. They're shooting 38%. The Tribe 4-1 is a home favorite this year, so I do like William & Mary minus the points against James Madison.
I couldn't agree more with you. Love that William & Mary, though they burned me last week, last game against Drexel, by the way, who we also like in today's spot, getting some points there in an underdog role. But I'm going to go a little off the beaten path here, Ralph, and I bet you didn't see this one coming, but I'm going to go and look towards Liberty at North Florida. I am going in the Atlantic Sun, and I got to tell you, North Florida at home getting 6 points in this game. You got the 2 top teams in the Atlantic Sun going at it. Liberty is, 19-1. They got a 5-0 conference record. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They just beat Lipscomb, I believe, on over the weekend. North Florida, meanwhile, the North Florida Ospreys, second in the league, I believe, second with a record of, 11-9 now, conference record of 4-1. They bounced back. They had their first loss against New Jersey Tech. Then they bounced back with a win on the road against Jacksonville. I think Liberty wins this, but being at home, giving me 6 points, I think there's a ton of value with backing the home dog here in North Florida. I'll take the points all day. They might even pull the upset here.
I'm looking up, Joe. North Florida, again, besides that loss to NJIT, they're 8-1 their last 9 games. And long term, looking back to last February, all the way back to last February, they're 20-7, 74.1% against the spread.
Yeah, they've been moneymakers in the past, absolutely. I mean, and again, tonight you talk about war. This is number 1, number 2 team here, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And of course, guys, opportunities galore tonight on the card all week. But you got to get over to WagerTalk.com, get the Ralph's page. Get the package, get all the plays, never miss one. Big night tonight. Ralph's got his 5% side play up there, so make sure you grab it. Come back and join us tomorrow. We'll break it all down. We'll get you ready for what is going to be an unbelievable weekend in college hoops on Saturday. So, Ralph, as always, good luck with your plays here, my friend, and we'll do this all again tomorrow again.
Joe, we'll talk to you in 23.
23 it is. Be good, guys. Good luck with the plays. Get over to WagerTalk.com.